Good afternoon. I'm here recording myself in my house to give you a summary of Chapter 8 so that it's easier to understand the analysis. And well, as you know, this is one of the longest chapters. It almost has 30 pages, and we couldn't finish reading it in class. So, well, this is what basically what happens. Bilbo and the dwarves march in a single file through the forest along the path. They quickly come to hate the constant sight of cobwebs and the almost total darkness in which they sleep every night, and even in daytime it is dark. So at night, Bilbo sees bright, glowing eyes looking at him and thinks that these eyes must belong to insects, not animals. So imagine the fear of the hobbit and the dwarves too. Imagine in the middle of the forest at night with no light, and you see eyes, and you imagine they belong to insects. It's terrible because an insect must be huge for you to see its eyes through the night in the forest. Eventually, the group comes to a stream and sees a boat on the opposite side. They remember that Bjorn's advice. They remember that Bjorn had told them not to get into the water if they see a river or a stream, because they might be or either poisoned or magical. So they don't swim in the stream, but throw a rope across to pull the boat over. Once they have the boat, Bilbo and the dwarves go across 2 or 3 at a time, with Bombur, the fattest, going last despite his protestations. As they cross the river, they see an enchanted deer jump over the river. Though Thorin tells them not to hold their fire, not to use their last arrows, the dwarves waste all of their arrows trying to shoot the deer, making their bows useless. When it's Bombur's turn to cross, he falls in the water and immediately falls asleep because the waters were kind of poisoned. So the dwarves must now carry him. Imagine the fattest of the dwarves asleep. So the group begins to hear mysterious laughter, and they know this laughter doesn't belong to the goblins, but they are still keeping a distance. They try to go the other way from the laughter sound. So the dwarves send Bilbo to climb a tree because you know the hobbit was the thinnest of them, or the most agile to climb a tree, and in the hope that he will be able to see the end of the forest, to know what direction to follow, because they were exhausted from walking day after day, night after night. So Bilbo climbs a tree, and at the top he sees sunshine and beautiful butterflies, but no end to the trees. In fact, he was very near an exit, but he doesn't see it. He's blinded by the sun in many ways. By the time he's climbed back down, he's tired and miserable at having to return to the forest. And when he tells the dwarves what he saw, they, of course, are miserable too. Then, when they are feeling hopeless, Bombur wakes up, and he tells them that he has been having lovely dreams of feasts and food, and he mentions a king, the king of the wood, and he describes him as wearing a crown formed with leaves, and Thorin is irritated with this news since the group's supplies have almost run out. So it's terrible having someone speaking about delicious food when you're hungry, you're starving, and you have very little food left. Bilbo and the dwarves see lights and what appears to be the king of the woodland holding a grand feast. So this is suspicious. Bombur mentions the king in a dream, and then they see him, and they have this vision 3 times. The first time Thorin is reluctant to step off the path to go to the feast, but eventually he and the others wander toward the food because they're really starving. As soon as they arrive, when they step into what is illuminated, it becomes completely dark, and this happens 3 times, as I told you. And Bilbo becomes, in the last time, Bilbo becomes separated from the rest of his group. So Bilbo falls asleep, and when he wakes up from dreams of food and home, the same as Bomburs, he finds himself half covered in spider thread. A giant spider has captured him and is about to poison him. Bilbo manages to free his sword, named, do you remember the name? Sting, and immediately kills the spider. He names his sword Sting and suddenly feels powerful and excited. Imagine, all by himself, without using the ring, without being helped by the magician, and without being helped by the dwarves, he kills a giant spider. So he's empowered. So he puts on his ring and follows the sound of yelling. There is yelling. And with a little luck, he comes to a web where a group of giant spiders, they are discussing the big group of dwarves they have captured. Bilbo recognizes the shapes of the dwarves covered in thread. He finds a small stone and throws it at the spider, killing it. Confident that the spiders can't see him because he's wearing his ring, he begins singing a song, mocking the remaining spiders and luring them away from their web. Bilbo doubles back and hastily uses his sword to cut the dwarves free. They are tired and sick from the spider's poison, and Bombur is so exhausted that he falls out of the web. The spiders close in around Bombur, but Bilbo jumps down and kills half a dozen with his sword, while the dwarves use sticks and stones to help him scare away the rest. Bilbo realizes that he'll have to explain. This time he has no way out. The dwarves have seen him become invisible, so he cannot keep the ring as a secret anymore. He tells them that he can use it to disappear and that they must run away from the spiders while he uses his ring and sword to fight them. For what seems a long time, Bilbo defends the dwarves, but eventually the spiders give up and return to their lair. The dwarves run away from the spiders and eventually arrive at a place that they determine to be the home of the wood elves, who are often hostile to visitors but are not evil like the goblins. They are curious about Bilbo's story and ask him many questions. It is at this time that they begin to take Bilbo more seriously, as Gandalf hinted that would happen at the beginning. Suddenly, the dwarves notice that Thorin is missing. The narrator reveals, we get to know by the narrator what happened to Thorin. When the dwarves were wandering off the path to find the food in the feast, the wood elves had found him and captured him for supposedly attacking them at their feast. Thorin is taken before the king of the wood elves. He tells him that he was traveling with his companions, but he refuses to say what they were doing in the woods. He doesn't want to give away the plan, which was getting back their treasure. The king accuses Thorin of lying, and as a wood elf, is hostile to dwarves in general, since the dwarves supposedly stole the elves' treasure long ago. This is a different version from what the dwarves believe. They believe that it was the elves who took the treasure from them. So the king sends Thorin to prison, where Thorin is given only bread and water, and wonders what became of his friends.